with human athletes?
It's very closely mirrored. And when you're treating athletes in general, we have to remember that athletes are on 4 feet and 2 feet. And we have to treat them with respect. We have to make sure that we're doing what we can do to keep them as healthy as possible. And I love where the industry has changed. You know, we don't just think pharmaceutical anymore. It's necessary when it's needed, like we were talking about Lasix. But the thing is, we also have a lot of alternative choices to look at, and that's a wonderful thing. Great guest.
She's amazing. And speaking of, you know, using those alternative methods in order to keep your equine athlete sound, I have a really good friend. He's worked on my horses physically for many years, since I was in high school, which was only like 5 years ago. And anyways, he's worked on my horses for many years. I'm not going to tell you how long, but he also has a wife who has made the NFR. They didn't necessarily believe in, you know, the new age type medical stuff that a lot of us use when we're on the road to the NFR. And so they managed to keep this horse, you know, sound and safe and make the NFR and win the Calgary Stampede. You guys, please give a warm welcome to my very good friend, Guy Winters, and his wife, NFR qualifier, Jean Winters. Warm welcome. Warm welcome. Yep, hands together. We got this, you guys. You can do it. Well, we have
we be disturbing the peace. Working, we serving the streets. About to go ahead, going beast. Bang, bang, leave you sleep. Tick, tick, boom. Hard body, and not scaring nobody. You make me resort to wildin'. You must be behind the diamonds hiding. Want it to be this way, but y'all won't need to try this. So it's no way around it. You the loudest one, it's gonna be quiet. We be disturbing the peace. Working, we serving the streets. About to go ahead, going beast. Bang, bang, leave you sleep.
Man, Jane, this was cool to watch. It was so cool to watch about your guys' video versus a lot of people that come up here, is that you guys aren't just instilled in the barrel racing industry, you are also in the rough stock industry, the roping industry, and there's a pony rolling on there. I know that Guy Winters has put as much time and effort into working on that pony as he has Hello Stella and my horses, as well as Jim.
You know, that pony right there is kind of an interesting story. I sent you more videos of him, but...
Oh, we can only be here so long.
I know. But that pony, he's belonged to Sequin Brewer in Amarillo, and she called me and she said, Guy, something's wrong with Little Britches. And we've had him to the vet, we've had him everywhere, and they say nothing's wrong with him, but Little Pony couldn't eat, he couldn't breathe, and if you could hear it, it was just like, you know. And they put out feed for him, and he'd just sit there and look at it, and everything, and he'd frothe, and I told her, I said, Sequin, I think we just need to do teeth on him. I mean, I really do. And release his TMJ. Released his TMJ, did teeth on him, and mind you, the vet had told her that his teeth were fine and nothing was wrong with him.
I mean, but that's what it takes at the elite level, you guys. I mean, we all trust our vets, we really do. But there's actually just professionals in every single topic of the equestrian realm now. And so you have your expertise in teeth, in the body management, holistic type management of horses. And, you know, our vets, they'll save their lives, for sure. I mean, but there's definitely a way to go either way, whether it's, you know, holistically or new age medicine.
Well, anyway, so went in there and released the TMJ, did his teeth. He had buccal points growing into his cheeks. Now, mind you, I don't know who would look at that mouth and say, oh, he doesn't need his teeth done, but this pony was horrible. And
I mean, that's information is on our website, just so you don't use it.
yeah. But anyway, I did him. That video there, she sent me like 2 weeks later, and she was just like, Little Britches is back, you know. And so
what I love about that story guy is the fact that, did you guys see and feel the type of emotion that he had connected to this little pony called Little Britches? And what's interesting about it is he has that type of passion for this little pony. However, he works on the most elite horses in the world. I mean, you've worked on mine, you've worked on Hello Stella, you got Gene and Zand of the NFR, and Dwayne Calgary, and I just think that's what's really cool about you, is that no matter how successful the animal is that you're working on, you treat them the same as if they're sister or as if they're Little Britches.
Right. You know, and that's the thing, it's, of course, me and you have talked a lot because you're kind of like my kid, but what I do, I don't do massage, I don't do chiropractic, I release muscles. And I call what I do guyology. I learned, I tell everybody God taught me. I feel like God gave me a gift to just be able to find where they're sore, get in there and release that muscle, and that fixes it.
And I'm just so impressed that you brought that up today, because I think that we do get kind of wrapped up in how talented that we can be in whatever it is that we are doing, but to step back and realize, you know what, no, all of our talent, all of our ideas, our talent, everything comes from God. And to remember that and kind of stay on his path, and when your plans don't go right, remember it's God's plan and not yours. I love that you said that, because it does bring me back, especially when I get nervous or anything like that. Like, it's not my plan, it's God's. And, you know, he has me up here on this stage today, whether I was nervous to get up here or not. That's my God-given mission, and I better get it done.
Right. Well, you know, and on my sign and everything that I put up when I'm set up at a barrel race or anything like that, it talks, it's in Genesis, and I think it's 41:16. And what it's talking about is Pharaoh. When Pharaoh asked Joseph to interpret his dream, Joseph didn't say, I'll do it. Yeah, I can do it. He said, I can't do it, but my God will give you the answer you need. And so that's how I feel about working on a horse. When I go work on him and I'm looking for those knots and everything in the muscles, I feel like God just will lead me to them. And, you know, you can believe it or not, whatever, but that's, you know, that's the way it is. And I'm not very shy about telling people, as you know.
Well, it might sound like hobo jobo to somebody who doesn't believe in this. However, it's scientifically proven, especially in the sports psychology realm, that if you can allow yourself to get into that meditative state of mind, that your subconscious can take over, or what we like to say, you know, our God and Jesus can take over, and you can hear from him and actually lead you to the next step.
Right.
I was going to say, I think it opens us up to the idea that sometimes we have to look past the things that are traditionally recommended and search out for something that may be completely different but could be the answer.
Yes, and you know, okay, so what I do, and I dig deep and I find a knot in a muscle, and I'm going to go through my 90% rule, but a muscle will expand and contract 90% of its size. Sydney's heard this a million times. Muscle will expand and contract 90% of its size. A tendon and ligament, 10%. There's three parts to a muscle. There's the origin, the body, and the insertion. When most of the time when you get a knot in a muscle or a spasm, as some people would call it, it's actually in the origin. So you have to dig and find, and it doesn't matter if you can tell somebody, oh, that is the da-da-da-da-da muscle. It doesn't matter. Just find that spot and hold it. I do a lot what they call in human massage is called neuromuscular massage. And it's just find a knot and hold it and release it. And that's what I do. And so, okay, just take, for instance, a horse that's usually going by the first barrel. If they're going by that first barrel, 90% of the time, probably it's going to be up under the shoulder blade about that deep. And I have to use a cane to go in there and get it against my body and mash with everything I got to get up there and get rid of that knot.
I mean, I don't know about everybody else, but I'm definitely going to make an appointment at Massage MD after this. And I'm like, you know what, I need that in this very specific spot back here. Jean, I want to know, having Guy at your fingertips, how has that contributed to your success in making the NFR and winning the Calgary Stampede, which is the most prestigious season rodeo?
Well, it's kind of like the cobbler's kids' shoes. You know, the cobbler's kids usually run around with no shoes on because he's always busy doing somebody else's shoes. And so every once in a while I have to just go to him and say, it's time. It's time.
Guy, where are you? So you're saying if you didn't work on all of our horses, you'd be here every year?
No. He says it's because I don't enter. But
that is the first step. You have to enter to win.
Yeah. But no, having him when he comes home and I say, okay, my horse is doing this, or this, and I need you to check him. I think it's in this area. Then he can usually find something there, and he'll roll his eyes at me sometimes and be like, oh my gosh, Jean, your horse is not crippled. Would you just work? Just go and make him work. And I tell him,
ride better. Yeah, my husband tells me that too. Just ride
all
better.
the time,
It's fun.
all the time. And I tell him that it's my life's mission to make him a better person, and that is why I ride the horses I do, to teach him more so that he can go and help everybody else's horses. He does not follow that logic, but I kind of think it makes sense.
It sounds very selfless, but Zan, the horse that you made the NFR on and won the Calgary Stampede on, he has a very special story. So we had Kimmy Byler up here, and she was talking about the breeding and the genetics of these super athlete horses, and everything that goes into having one of these type of animals in order to qualify for the NFR. And I feel like sometimes that can be a little bit discouraging because it feels like, oh my gosh, like I'll never have that, or like how can we end up in that scenario where we can have a horse like that. But you guys, Zan isn't one of those super bred athletes. Tell us his story.
No, Zan is actually Calbred, and he's little. He's just 14 I have more bulldoggers and calf ropers coming up to me and asking me if I ever got tired of him, if I'd sell him because he looked more like that than he did like a barrel horse. He didn't act like a barrel horse. He didn't look like a barrel horse. And but he's Calbred, and he just he was one of those God-given gifts. And I, like Wenda Johnson said, if it weren't for that special horse and a husband saying, yeah, go ahead, do it, you should do it. And I did feel like, God kind of pushed me off the cliff.
The analogy of all of us being pushed off cliffs and bridges, that's what it feels like if y'all make the NFR, like decide to make the choice to go on the road. It feels very much like you're free falling.
Very much. I remember it was I guess I was on my permit and I went to Raton and ran by the first barrel, and I called Guy and I was like, I don't know. And Joanne Middleton, who's an NFR qualifier, she got on the phone and she said, hey, it's gonna be a long run to the first at Santa Fe tomorrow night. Let him go. And she kind of gave me the pep talk through it, and I ended up splitting second at Santa Fe and filling my permit. And I'm on my way home and I called Guy and I said, okay, so I know I'm entered in Greeley, but I don't think I need to go. I don't think I'm ready yet. And he goes, you just split second at Santa Fe. How can you not be ready? And I said, well, I just don't feel ready. I'm not ready. And he doesn't usually take no for an answer. And so he kind of forced me to go to Greeley. And big stage, huge arena, and we clipped a barrel to be in the top
Surely
five.
not the first barrel. If you guys don't know, the Greeley Stampede, it's a long way to that first barrel, and it's an even longer way from the first barrel to the actual fence behind the first barrel.
Yes.
So it's intimidating for anybody, let alone someone who's actually maybe having a little bit of first barrel confidence issues.
So Greeley in that day was, the way it's set up was very intimidating. And I don't even know which barrel I hit. I know I hit one, and I remember turning around, and when I ran home, I saw it down on the ground and think, oh man. But I did, it got kind of, so I filled my permit, and then that fall, Cappy Allen was going through on her way to rodeo, and I don't remember which one it was. It was like August or something, and Cappy stopped. We were putting on a rodeo in Douglas, and guy saw our trailer and stopped her. He had ridden horses for her before, so he knew her, and said, hey, Jean's got this really nice horse. And she said, well, she needs to just come down and rodeo with me. And I'm going, what are you thinking? But I did, and once again, it was God setting me, like God pushing me off the cliff.
Bringing together the camaraderie is what I'm continuously hearing at these shows. And that is the whole point of the Team Fearless message, is it never takes one person. I mean, you'll see Jean, and she's the superstar, and Zan's the superstar, but there's so much that goes on behind the scenes, and that support team is very important, and it's been important for me with you guys.
It is huge, and it does take more. It's never just one person. You have to take into account everybody at home, taking care of things at home, and those that are driving with you, and those that are just giving you advice, or that you haven't even met, or not directly giving you advice, but put things out on Facebook or whatever, like Jeff here. I've seen posts that he's made, and it's kind of clicked in my mind, okay, I should change this, or I should do this, and it's helpful. It's something that, if you ever get into a bubble and stay in the bubble by yourself, you're not going to go anywhere.
Yeah, and I do believe that. I'm sorry, Jeff. I do believe that as athletes, we do get stuck in that situation where we think that we got it figured out. What's working is working, and not to change anything. However, in order to progress, you do need to grow, and there are points in time where we do need to look for outsourced information and to continue learning. And just like in doctors, you have to keep taking those classes, and you're continuing education. And it's the same way in the equine realm, and that's what I'm hearing from you right now. Is you can get help from anybody. Just keep an open ear, but take everything with a grain of salt.
It's funny you mentioned that. Some of the best advice I've received in my life are from people that I had never met, that gave me the advice either through a email, a text, or a social media posting. I've never met them, but I learned more from someone that I hadn't even met. So you add that to your circle, and the people that you do rely on, pretty powerful.
Yes, it is very powerful, and to go back to what you said, when you start holding yourself in that circle by yourself, because I need to stay tight, then your mind starts playing tricks on you and telling you, well, you're not quite good enough. Are you sure you're good enough? And you need somebody there beside you, like Guy is for me. Yeah, you're good enough. Keep going. And it's definitely something that we all need.
Sometimes I feel like, well, my dad, one of the most intense things he's ever told me that carries with me throughout my life is that it's not about winning the game, and it's not about being the best. And the best aren't who is good enough in your definition. The best is who can actually roll through bobbles the smoothest. So he always said, play it like it's a chess game. And when you run into a mountain or a problem or an issue or plans change, simply move a pawn.
I don't know how to play chess.
And that's okay, because I'm pretty sure Guy does. And that's why this team works.
That's funny.
Talking about, I'm going to tell a story on Jean. She talks about having to enter or whatever, to go. Well, we went to Calgary, and she actually qualified to the WPRA deal, the division
Oh, the tour,
thing,
the
yeah.
tour. So Calgary is one of the hardest rodeos to qualify for. It is the greatest show on earth. They pride themselves in it. They only take the top 10 after the NFR standings. They only take the top 5 after the Canadian standings, after the finals. So these people, when you watch them competing at the NFR, it's not just for a world championship, it's to remain or sneak into that top 10 in order to be qualified for these limited entry rodeos.
Right.
And this is what he's talking about. So this year that you guys are talking about, they took 4 from the W Prairie Tour standings, which is a group of very elite rodeos that had the standings by itself, and that's how you qualified into that.
Yes, and she almost didn't go to the W Prairie finals that year to run in that race, and she was sitting just right on the bubble of being able to go to Calgary. And I said, "Why don't you go to Tulsa?" "I don't like Tulsa." "Okay." and so anyway, she was like, "I don't like that," or whatever, you know. And a lady from the W Prairie office called her and said, "Gee, why aren't you entered in this?" And she's like, "Well, I don't know." And she's like, "You realize that if you do good here, you could go to Calgary." And she's like, "Well, let me talk to the guy." So we prayed about it and everything. So she entered, and anyway, wound up doing good there and going on to Calgary. And we got up there in the first 4 runs, Pool A. She didn't win nothing.
So it felt such like God plans. You're like, yes, this is what we're meant to do, and then you get there and zilch.
Yeah. So like nothing. She has won absolutely nothing. And after the 4th run, we're walking back to the trailer, and you still got the wild card round on Saturday then. I don't think they even have a wild card now. But and she said, "I'm going home." And I was like, No. We still got the wild card and everything. And I don't know if I wouldn't have been there. She might have just like a layoff.
She probably would have went home.
He literally talked me off the cliff.
She was on a cliff that day, but anyway, then she wound up winning it. So anyway, wound up good.
Oh, that was a terrible ending to that story. So actually, you guys, what happened is they only take 1, right? Back from the wild card round at Calgary. 2, back from the wild card round at Calgary. The Calgary Stampede pays $100,000 to win it. And Guy has told me this story, and I'm just going to say, y'all can hate me later, but that they were worried about not being able to afford to get back across the Canadian border into the U.S. in order to get home. And I mean, you guys were eating peanut butter, is like what I heard, I don't know, from a bird. And so I want to know, after that wild card round, when she qualified back in the top 2, then from there you go to a 10 round. And you have to qualify from the 10 round to a 4 round in order to be able to run against only 3 other contestants for $100,000. So after that wild card round, what were you thinking, Jim? I mean, did you think that you had a chance to win the 100?
Honestly, in all of my runs, I never really think that far. It's stride by stride for me. It's just kind of whatever. Zan was special enough that I knew I had to ride, but I can't say that I had to ride a special way. I just had to hustle him all the way through, and all I could think of was, okay, just keep riding. And the funny thing about it is that last, I think it was at the wild card, Zan, the way he turned was real bad to throw me up over his neck, and he'd been throwing me up over his neck and throwing me up over his neck.
So what she's saying is, as one of the top athletes in the world, the top barrel racers in the world, even she was getting a little unseated on her equine athlete, and she's saying, that she was maybe up by her ears and got a little close.
And Guy came to me and he said, "Hey, I've got an idea." And I said, "Okay, what is it?" And he said, "Do you trust me?" And I said, "That's a loaded question."
Very loaded.
And anyway, he said, "I think we need to drop our stirrups." And most barrel racers say, "Let's jack your stirrups up." And I said,
Or let's not change anything at the rodeo. I mean, that was always our big rule.
I've always been real bad about somebody bring me a saddle or a bit or something, and they say, "Here, you want to try this?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure." Why not? But he tells me let's drop my stirrups, and that's what helped me because I couldn't depend on my stirrups anymore. I had to sit down, and Sam turned better. I could stay seated a little better, and the rest is history.
Takes a team.
It does. It takes a team.
It definitely takes a team, and we're going to just kind of fast forward. So you made it through the wild card round, you're in the 10 round, you clearly made it into the top 4 of the 10 round. Were you still wanting to go home, or were you going to go ahead and try to make a run for that 100,000?
Well, the 4 days in Pool B, Guy had talked me off the cliff of driving home. For one, he said he held the keys and I couldn't drive, and he said we gotta give it that last try. And for the 4 runs, they wouldn't let me, because I was in Pool A, they wouldn't let me ride in Pool B, but I would go down and watch everybody, and I'll watch people just to learn what they have, what they're doing, and then take with a grain of salt, what can I use out of that? And what is she doing that's making her horse turn better than what my horse is turning? Where is she riding? At what point is she riding to that's making her horse be a little bit snappier than what mine is? And that's just kind of always been the way I've seen things. And so when the wild card came, I kind of had a different plan going in there. And it was 10 years ago. I can't tell you exactly what the plan was, except that it was different than the first 4 months.
Except that it worked.
Yeah. And anyway, when he went in there, one of the things that made him, back then they had the pattern, if you ran straight from the 3rd barrel home, you ran right at the roping box. And everybody was turning 1st or 3rd barrel and running to the open gate. And so he is actually the one that caught it. And he said, if you run straight.
Well, tell them the story about how you caught it, because it's kind of cool. Who were you watching that was clocking so good, and you're thinking, you know what, maybe we'll try that?
So, Sherry Serby went in on Stingray, and actually ran the fastest time of the rodeo, and ran right at the head box, and I'm watching. And I said to myself, she's running straight home from that 3rd row, cutting the stride out. So the next morning at the practice, I said, Sherry, why did you head to the head box? And she said, I don't know, I just had my head down, and that's where I ended up. I never said a word, because I didn't want it to dawn on her that I actually took a stride out of her run. So I was like, okay, keep quiet. So I told Gene after that at the wild card, I said, you aim right at that head box when you run out. And if you want it, if you can watch her run ever, she's running like this coming home, and then all of a sudden Sam goes, whoo, like that, and after she crosses the line and goes through the gate. But that was one of our little
secrets to success at Calgary.
First time I've really told very many people that.
There are no coincidences.
And there's no secrets on this stage, that's for sure.
And on Zan, I could trust him. I trusted him on anything. A lot of people say, well, I don't know if I want to run my good horse on bad ground. I don't want to. But Zan, honestly, the harder I ran him, I would just let him do what he needed to do. And I'd trust him that he'd take care of me. And some people go, oh my gosh, your horse loves you so much. And I said, no, he loves himself enough. He's not going to hurt himself. That's why. It has nothing to do with me. It's just that I'm on his back. But he always would. If I sent him towards one thing, he ran to it, and then if he didn't feel like he could stop at that fence, then he would go. But he was never gonna hurt himself, and he wasn't gonna duck and try and hurt me. So I knew, I just had enough trust in him that I knew I could just ride straight at it, and then he'd come back around.
I mean, she does say that maybe, this horse would run with anybody, but I've actually seen him run with other jockeys, and it's not nearly as exciting as it is when I watch you guys run at all. So
Well, actually, I did let somebody ride him, and I thought we were going good. She ran him at my house, and it worked. She hit a barrel, and she said, I think I can figure it out. So I took her to a jackpot, and she hit a barrel. She goes, I think I can figure it out. So we went to another jackpot, and he hit a barrel. And she said, I think I got it figured out. And I said, okay, this is how you got to ride him. And my son it was at a college rodeo. And I told my son, I said, hang on to Zan until you get all the way to the end, because he would take off. He would high-hole silver from the gate and just run, and you couldn't hold him. You just had to let him go. And so
Just like close your eyes and hope it works.
well, guys, pep talk to me before I ran was always hold two hands until you think you're gonna die. Go one more stride, and then let him turn. And he said, if that just don't fall off. And while Rachel ran, he took off in the alley and ran full out all the way to the first, inhaled first. And I thought, okay, yeah. And he started 2 second and ducked. And she pulled him up and she goes, what happened? And I said, he just said no.
He decided not to play today.
The next night I took him to a pro rodeo and placed.
And that's why it really does take a team, and you really do have to have that connection with your horse. And I love watching the top 15 this year. Every single one of them has a connection with their horse. They know them like the back of their hand. Their horses trust them, and it truly does. It does take off those tenths of a second that truly matter in this type of scenario. And you guys are so cool, and you're such a great team, and you really are. And it does take a team to ride Fearless, and you guys are some of the most fearless people that I know. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you for being here.
You guys, I hope that all of these stories and hearing from the best in the world helps you or gives you that intense drive within you to make you want to go home and figure out how to ride Fearless. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.